Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's a happy Friday today. My name's Amanda Ruback, and I'm a nurse and the community outreach coordinator here at the Missouri Poison Center. And with me today is Abby. She is one of our registered nurses and certified specialists in poison information.
Good
She works
morning.
on our hotline, answering the calls from anyone that calls in the state of Missouri. So we're going to talk today about some upcoming uh, things that you might be doing, which is traveling either for the Thanksgiving holiday or for the end of the year holidays. And we really want to make sure that your poison safety follows you on your travels and that you keep yourself and your family safe this holiday season. Really, each year, millions of Americans will travel to visit loved ones or to take a last minute vacation. The kids will be out of school and there'll be a lot of change to your regular household routine. So it's important to make sure that wherever you're traveling is safe and secure for you and your family, because the risk of poisoning does increase as vacation and travel occurs. So I'm going to let Abby take it away as she discusses some safety tips and some specific ideas to mention around travel.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. And like she said, it really does increase the risk of poisonings when you're out of your routine and doing things differently than usual, maybe distracted by the holidays. So something to keep in mind for sure. But some ideas to try to protect yourself and your children would be to make sure that you inspect anywhere that you're going to. So whether it's a hotel room, staying with family or friends, you want to kind of look around the room and see if there are any obvious dangers there. And then if you're packing any cleaning products with you, make sure that you store them up and away and out of sight of children. That includes any kind of hand sanitizers, disinfectants, anything you may be bringing with you. And then, if you are traveling with little kids, one good rule of thumb is to actually get down on the floor and see things at their eye level. So you can sit on the floor, or if you're so inclined, you could actually crawl around the room. But usually find things that you wouldn't otherwise notice when you're down at their eye level. And then bringing your own cabinet locks and medicine lock boxes or other safety devices is going to be really helpful too. And then when you're looking around the room, you can also notice if there are any plants around that little kids could get into, ashtrays, and of course, alcoholic beverages, because a lot of them look very appealing to little kids and especially adults that don't have young kids in the home anymore. A lot of times they'll set it down on a low table without thinking. So it's always a good idea to make sure those things aren't around. And then you just want to check the room for other safety features like outlet covers. If there are any stairs in the room, ideally you want to have a gate at the top and bottom of the stairs, and then any windows with cords, like blind cords. And then medicine errors do increase when you travel, like I said, basically because of schedule changes, being out of your routine, and being distracted. So you want to make sure to keep medicines and personal products out of reach of children. Keep them in their original containers, because that's one easy way to make sure that someone doesn't mistake it for something else. And then for any medication, you want to make sure to lock it up ideally. So you can either bring a lockbox with you or a cabinet lock and keep it up and locked. And then using products with child resistant packaging is helpful, but you want to keep in mind that it's only child resistant and not child proof. So there are a lot of children that can actually open those from a young age. I just had a 2-year-old a few days ago that was able to open several child resistant bottles. So it does happen, and you still want to keep those up and away, even if they are child resistant. And then make sure you remind other people with you to also keep things up and away. Like I said, especially if they don't have young children in their home, it's easy to kind of forget how easily little kids get into things. So some, reminders to keep things up high is always a good idea when you're visiting family and friends that don't have little kids. And then another idea for keeping medicines locked up would be in a suitcase, especially if you have one with a key. And then you could also bring like a tackle box with a padlock. That's a good way to lock up any medications and anything that's not safe for children to have. And then there's also some safety tips for adults, because children aren't the only ones that we get calls on. We do have adults that have mix-ups, especially when they're traveling or visiting other people. So these are some ideas to keep adults safe as well. So if you're traveling, you want to bring a little extra medicine, like a few days more than you need for your actual trip, just in case there's some kind of travel delay. And then if you are taking a flight, make sure you pack your medications in your carry-on luggage, because that way, if they lose your bag while you're flying or it's delayed, you're not stuck without your medication. And then you want to keep your medications in their original containers. And that's especially true if you are flying. A lot of times they need to actually see the prescription on the bottle. So make sure you keep it in the original container. And it also prevents you from mistakenly taking the wrong medication. And then another idea is just to have an accurate count of the number of pills you have before you leave. That's easy to do if you are checking your medication to make sure you have enough for the trip and a little extra. And then if you have an idea of how much you have, if there's some kind of mix-up or a child gets into it, hopefully not, but if that happens, it gives us a good idea of what was available if we're helping you at the poison center. And then if you're traveling somewhere that's in a different time zone, it's always a good idea to check with your physician or pharmacist to see if you need to be changing the times that you take your medication. Another winter travel consideration would be carbon monoxide. We get a lot of carbon monoxide calls in the winter. About 41% of them occur during the winter months, according to the CDC. It's mainly because most carbon monoxide exposures are related to faulty heating devices or boiler systems, which people are obviously using more in the wintertime. And then some other sources could be like a blocked chimney or blocked flue, car exhaust, and gas appliances. And carbon monoxide is referred to as a silent killer because it's a colorless, odorless gas. So a lot of times if you are exposed, you don't necessarily notice until you start having symptoms. So if you are exposed to carbon monoxide, usually you will start feeling a really bad headache. That's what almost all people complain of. Really, really bad headache. And then you can also have nausea, dizziness. It can, in some cases of high exposures, lead to chest pain, confusion, weakness. You can actually lose consciousness, and it can cause permanent neurological injury or even death. And people who are at a higher risk of symptoms from carbon monoxide exposure or higher risk of poisoning would be infants, young children, the elderly, and pregnant women. It's really, initial symptoms are a lot like a viral illness. So one main key difference is that it will not cause a fever. So if you're feeling ill, you have a severe headache, but you don't have a fever, it's worth considering, is there anything in this home that could be exposing us to carbon monoxide? And then another consideration in the winter time is car exhaust. A lot of people think of leaving your car running in the garage. Of course, that is a way to potentially expose yourself to carbon monoxide. It can also happen if you're in a car outside and idling for an extended period of time, especially if the exhaust pipe is blocked, which can happen most noticeably in snowstorms, like in blizzards. So, if it is really cold outside and you are sitting in an idle car, it's probably a good idea to crack the windows. Ideally, you don't want to sit in an idling car outside if you could avoid it. And then another consideration is just carbon monoxide alarms. Not all states have laws requiring carbon monoxide alarms in hotels. So unfortunately, not all hotels will have an alarm if there is a leak. So this is especially true in hotels that are out of the country, but it can happen in the US as well. So one consideration would be bringing your own battery operated carbon monoxide alarm with you if that's a concern. So that's one way to avoid unintentional exposure. And then when we're visiting with family and friends, there's a few ideas for just keeping your children safe when you're at a party. When people are at a party, you want to have fun and talk and have a good time. and it's easy to be distracted and maybe not keeping as close an eye on your child as you normally would be. So if you need a break and you want to relax, you can designate a child watcher. So one person will volunteer to be responsible for the child for certain time periods to make sure that they're always being watched. And then make sure that adults are aware that that your young child is able to reach things that are on tables. So you want to keep any medications up high and locked, ideally. And then you also want to keep any alcoholic beverages or anything else that could be dangerous to your child up and out of reach. And then again, if you are visiting a family's house, you could consider bringing a cabinet lock with you, or again, the tackle box with a padlock on it. And then you can store any medications or dangerous items up and away. I feel like a good example of this is when I visit my own parents' home for holidays or get-togethers. My father uses hearing aids, which have tiny, tiny batteries, and he frequently will take them out and put them in a little container next to the couch so he can hear the TV when he's sitting there. But of course, my toddler immediately goes for that little hearing aid container every time we go there. So I know when I go to his house that I have to go to that room first and make sure that that is up high and locked away. So just keep those things in mind when you're at a party with children.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Abby, for all that great and useful information, whether you will be traveling out of your home or inviting people into your home. It's really important to keep some of those safety tips in mind. And I do want to just encourage everyone to do this, which is add the poison helpline as a contact in their phone. It's a national number that will get you to the correct poison center that you are hoping to get, the Missouri Poison Center or other states. The number is 1-800-222-1222. And there you can speak to a registered nurse like Abby or one of our pharmacists who is specially trained in poison information. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including our holiday time. So if you have an exposure that you're worried about or concerned, don't hesitate to call, even though it might be a holiday. We are there willing and available to talk to you any time of day. So again, save that number in your cell phone, 1-800-222-1222. And I appreciate your time. Thanks, Abby, for your great information, and have a great holiday season.
Thank you. Happy holidays.